Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. So, in case you were wondering, we're watching this ritual that is really beyond silly, and yet it's part of our culture here. Puxatawny Phil did see his shadow 6 more weeks of winter. Well, Max Velocity says, no, we're heading into we're going to head into some record heat, but then we still might have an Arctic blast in mid-February.
Yeah, I mean, I trust Puxatawny.
Oh, the pomp and the circumstance. It is something to behold. This world is full of different rituals. And when you look to the top picture here, this is the Philadelphia event that we were talking about. The quote-unquote plane crash that came down. You see very, very similar results with different missiles in the 3 pictures below. Really, you can't tell much of a difference between those impacts, as there are many people that witnessed it still saying that they just can't believe it was a plane. Now, a fully loaded plane, full of fuel, just getting off the runway. Yeah, we'll always have that official version, but I think there's going to be people that always doubt the official version now.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess still.
With, good reason. Meanwhile, Trudeau, I thought he was going to be gone. Wasn't he stepping down? What's he still doing here? He can't let go. Trudeau has slapped tariffs, 25% retaliatory tariffs on American goods. And so here you go. Today I'm announcing Canada will be responding to U.S. trade action with 25% trade tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods. Well, we are entering a very, very testy time in so many ways. It's been testy from for a while now. Meanwhile, you have you could just see how intense people dislike one side or the other. And here you go, grocery shopping at Trader Joe's in D.C. There are no eggs at any price. Anybody else seeing this? Well, I'm not. I just got 2 18-packs for $7 each, organic, at one of our local places. So I haven't seen that. I haven't seen any increase in prices. Here you go. Terrific. You got what you voted for. At grocery in front of eggs. Again, if you're buying eggs that are like this and they're not marked organic or free range organic, you are what the chickens eat. And that's the thing for people to understand. We still don't have the masses understanding that whatever the chicken's eating, you're eating. And you should really recognize this. Now, I know our regulars understand all this. They totally get it. And this is something that unfortunately too few people really understand the bigger scheme of things. That old saying, you are what you eat. Well, if the chickens are eating things that have been modified in a certain way, then you're eating things that have been modified in a certain way. If the chickens are eating food that's loaded with pesticides, then you're eating food that's loaded with pesticides. If the chickens have been ouched for all sorts of things, then you've been ouched for all sorts of things.
Yeah. It's this rabbit hole that's not fun to go down, but to stay healthy these days, you got to look at everything.
Yeah, and again, the food prices are killing us ourselves. And food is our number one expense at this point in time by a long way. And you see here, eggs in Donald Trump's America versus Canada. It's people, it's the geopolitical thing. The part that people don't get is just by simply jumping in and taking sides, we become part of the machine. Now, is there a lesser of two evils? Yeah, there could be. There could be a clear decision, or you could say, hey, things were so bad that there's no way we could do that again. And I think that's exactly the situation in many people's minds. Yet at the same time, it's still the same political structure that's on the planet. as we have so many birds out there right now. They're in the thousands because I always feed the birds. I love seeing them come to the feeders. We have several feeders set up, and we'll be sharing some photos of them and the deer that come by every night. Monthly food rations per Polish citizen in the early 1980s, because we may forget, like when I grew up, Poland and part of Germany were behind the Iron Curtain, so to speak, and were part of the Soviet Union sphere of influence. I grew up back in the days of the Soviet Union, back in the days of the Cold War. These people were rationed. They had to go and just basically look and say, okay, well, we are allowed to get 500 grams of butter for a month. So if you have like some sort of recipe that you're dying to make, or traditionally, you make some sort of recipe and it calls for your whole monthly rations of butter, you really got to think long and hard about it. Do we want to do this tradition? I know in my family, my sister would do certain pastries every holiday. It would be the same thing, make certain pies. You really have to think about it. And I want to bring this up because we really may be finding ourselves in many areas going through this rationing. And most of us have not been used to this at all in our lives.
No, I'm just kind of looking at this and looking at the vodka and the cigarettes. Well, if you didn't drink and you didn't smoke, you could probably make some good deals with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't drink or smoke. So, that's where we save money. We don't eat out ever because, unfortunately in our area, there's not a lot of purely organic restaurants. And we wouldn't eat anything unless it was purely organic, even though we understand nothing is purely organic. Smartphone use leads to hallucinations, detachment from reality, aggression in teens as young as 13. So says a new study. Well, yeah, there's a lot of things about overusing the technology, which we're all guilty of probably to most extent, unless you're one of those rare people that's homesteading and, only checks, the internet every now and then. There are certainly a ton of people that it's like their smartphones, their tablets are basically already attached to them, where they never go anywhere without them. This is what we grew up with. I grew up with, again, the days of having to have a map in the car, which it's not a bad idea, guys. Keep a map in your car anyway, because you never know when things are going to go down. You really, really don't. We still have a very, very tense geopolitical situation out there. So having an actual map, I wonder how many people don't have a map at all on their person anymore, as we always just say, well, hey, Google, hey, Alexa, get me directions.
I know, and then if you have an actual map, a lot of times they show roads that otherwise Google wouldn't show.
So this was a pretty good-sized survey, over 10,500 teens between 13 and 17 from the U.S. and India in the study. And what they found is that it does severely affect people. And the more that you use them, the more severe the situation can be. Phones warping teen brains. 13-year-olds experiencing aggression, 37%. 13-year-olds experiencing hallucinations, 20%. Curious. Now, you should try to detox yourself from your technology right before bed. We like to shift to books, and we do have a little library, maybe about 500-600 books that we pull from. And it's a good habit to, actually read, and not from a tablet, because the lights can affect your pineal gland and make it harder for you to sleep.
Yeah, the blue light is a stinker, so you want to keep an eye on that blue light that emanates from the phones, the tablets, and the computers, and messes with your melatonin.
It sure does. And again, pineal gland functioning is something that's been the target of the power structure forever. So screen time essentially acts as a toxin that stunts both brain development and social development. The younger a kid is when given a device, the higher the likelihood of mental health issues later on. And this is not even really talking about the MKU aspect of this, that ultra aspect that we've mentioned before, or programming, literally the programming. So this has everything to do with our lifestyle. And again, get out and exercise, move your body. It's intended for that. Sinkholes near Tokyo merge. A man was trapped after 3 days in a sinkhole. This is in Saitama, Japan. This is wild. Of course, Japan gets some seriously big quakes. They are earthquake-prone, beautiful country. And again, they are experiencing a huge population decline as, again, people have given themselves to really being married to corporations for the most part, and thinking about how they are in service to the corporations, almost like you're born into a corporation. It's a very, very different culture over there. And again, corporations have been said that they will, it's been said by certain people like the few, and we put the FEW up to a mirror and you get WE, you know what we're talking about there, that corporations really will have more power in the future than countries, because countries have kind of served their purpose, and we're moving into a new time frame. I again think that that's not necessarily the case for everybody, as we are going to have certain areas that are going to refuse and are refusing to go along with certain plans, and there will be some that stay out of the cities at all costs and learn how to live in a much more harmonious way, naturally, more like, say, the Amish and certain other groups. So here you go. This is just a crazy condition. I feel really, really bad for the guy. I wouldn't want to be trapped in a sinkhole for 3+ days.
I think about the weirdest things. Like, poor guy, I'm sure he had to go to the bathroom, and then he had no food and all those huge inconveniences. It's like, gosh, that's had to be terrible to live through.
And they treat the wastewater with chlorine to prevent contamination of the river. They're talking about wastewater systems, and of course, anywhere you live, you can get these situations develop in the bigger cities where all of a sudden something gives way underneath, a water leak, and then you have this. But Japan, again, big quakes, big tsunamis, and here's some massive flooding. Queensland, Australia. Homes and roads submerged. One person has lost their life. Remember, never drive, walk, or ride through floodwater. People still do it all the time. Over 2,000 homes without power, and the flooding situation is expected to worsen. There was an AI-driven program that came out with what to expect in 2100 with quote-unquote climate change, global warming. As we know, they were always talking global warming. Now they shifted to climate change, but now here in the U.S. they're striking climate change out, and yet we still have so many people that follow the programming that's been given us for so long. And if Al Gore was right, we would all have been in that situation. But we're recognizing funny clouds. We're recognizing strange patterns. We're recognizing what looks like signals and frequencies being implanted into these strange clouds. And the awakening is happening too fast for the system to deal with, as more and more people realize this is not normal. 19.7 to 39 inches of rain in 48 hours, that's not normal, like anywhere, ever. And, yet at the same time, climate change, that covers just that's such a blanket term. The climate always changes. I've seen them showing parts of graphs, and I know the rest of graphs would show that what they're showing us in one little section of a graph is BS when looked at from the bigger perspective. And this is in Italy, as you see 130 millimeters of rain in a few hours, and it looks like a mud flood situation. Well, these mud flood situations have obviously happened. This is in Sicily, by the way, another beautiful place on the planet. These mud flood situations have happened far too often. In fact, some people now, the more they've delved into this, think that they happen really regularly, like maybe every several hundred years. United States a mud flood. When we look at the buildings that lie underneath the buildings that we see, even the ones we take for granted, and we're told certain histories. Our buddy John Levy, he does a video every Sunday morning, and he was talking about how this one architect who only lived 57 years in his entire life, and by the time he graduated from school and started to design buildings, they have so many buildings attributed to him. There's no way he did all those. There's just no way. It's just ridiculous to expect that this one guy was responsible for all these huge, grandiose, amazing buildings. And yet this is what the history is. They think people aren't going to pay attention is really what it is.
Mm-hmm. It is. And they just write what they write on there because honestly, people, I guess, they're not paying attention, or why wouldn't they talk to the education system about it? It's just odd. It's just very odd how they can put whatever they want to in print and no one questions.
But you see, by getting people riled up and mad at 47, or getting them riled up and mad at 46, or 45, or Obama, or the Bushes, by getting that to be the sole focus, by getting people to point fingers and say it's all their fault, well, they get us looking away from the bigger picture. And here's another Meteor event. This one is up in Canada. There was lots of sightings of something that lit up the sky over Ontario, Canada, January 28th. What was this? It behaves the same way as all these others that they say just basically break up, and they don't really leave any trace on the ground because they're vaporized. But it really does look like they are heading to hyperspeed when you really look at it. Yeah, no, it's just a meteorite coming and breaking up. It's not a ship that's passing by full of aliens and scoping out what you're having on your barbecue.
No, not at all.
No, you're so silly. It's just a rock. Don't worry. Yeah, did you know that from its founding until 1913, the United States had no income tax, none. Yet we did have schools, roads, colleges, railroads, subways, Army and a Navy. The Federal Reserve and income tax were implemented to keep America from becoming Midas rich. Yeah. And again, all this is done really, this banking act, which again, go back to the sinking of the Titanic, because there's a connection there. Many people have done videos on that. We've done a couple of videos on that. It's all connected. What we have now is the greatest discrepancy in between the haves and the have-nots that we've ever had in this country, and it keeps getting worse. Whether it's the left or the right, in there, it's kept getting worse. Again, the IRS should be abolished. It's not just my opinion. I think it's most of our opinions. Please do share your opinion. Do you think we should just abolish the IRS? Ooh, that sounds so good.
Probably gonna hurt the algorithms there.
I'm sure it is, and that's their whole point. It's because they own the IRS, and they own all these structures. Meanwhile, last night I had to call Cindy out into the cold and say, look at how beautiful this was, because we had the moon and we had Venus right next to it. As you see, it's going to be an interesting month. We're going to have a big lineup coming towards the mid-latter part of the month, which will be spectacular as well. Lots of signs in the skies. Did you know these little guys, they're little hungry buggers, aren't they? Look at them go.
They're kind of cute when you look at them like that, but, otherwise I don't think they're so cute.
Look at that escargot.
Ugh.
Well, each has their own taste, and this little guy is saying, please please, don't ever leave me alone. I want to be your buddy for life. Please, please. I'm just afraid. This really is so many people. I go back to the beginning when we're showing Puxatawny Phil, and I'm thinking of the religious rituals that so many go through without even understanding why they're doing it. What's his name again that we were watching? He's with Mauro Bolino a lot. Paul Wallace? Paul Wallace? Maybe. I think it was. He did once a video saying they don't want me to keep talking about this, and it was talking about the uncomfortable nature and pressure that pastors and priests and the like get now in the age of disclosure. That's a whole subject for itself. But, when I'm looking at Puxatawny Phil and the ritual that comes down, and it's really tongue-in-cheek, at the same time, it is so much like our religious structure in a way, in that we don't even know half the time why we do the things we do, say the things we say. We just take it for granted, and yet it's like programming. Well, programming of the heart and programming more compassion into each other. Recognize that often when people do things and that might irk you, or, again, this is all being manufactured, and it is, again, conquer and keep the masses under control through division. As soon as we take a deep breath and say, hey, let's really look at the situation. Can we do better? I think we can. And I think a lot of people are ready for that.
Yes, we can, and we will.
Absolutely. Again, guys, come join us over on Patreon. We'll be doing an exclusive today up over there. Usually several times each week we do exclusives on Patreon. You can join the family over there for as little as $1 a month currently, and there are different tiers with different benefits to them, so come and check it out. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.